The Empire had conquered 17 star systems in the last 1,000 years. Their warships moved through space like silver ghosts, powered by energy cores that could destroy entire planets. Their shields could stop any weapon. Their sensors could detect a single life form from 3 light years away. They had never lost a battle. They had never met an enemy they could not crush within hours. When their long-range probes discovered Earth, the High Command laughed. They actually laughed. The species living on that small blue planet had only recently discovered space travel. Their ships were made of metal and ran on chemical fuel. They had no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no faster-than-light engines. The humans, as they called themselves, were using technology that they had abandoned 5,000 years ago. Admiral, commander of the 7th Armada, requested permission to conquer Earth as a training exercise for his younger officers. The High Command agreed. It would be good practice. The entire invasion force consisted of 200 warships, which was considered excessive for such a primitive world. But Admiral wanted to give his officers a proper show. The Armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system on a cold Tuesday morning by Earth's calendar. They did not announce themselves. They did not send warnings. They saw no reason to negotiate with insects. They simply began their approach toward Earth, their ships gliding through the darkness like predators closing in on wounded prey. Earth's defense network detected them immediately. General Sarah stood in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching 200 alien signatures appear on her screens. She had been preparing for this moment for 15 years. Every government on Earth had been preparing. They had seen the alien probes. They had captured one and studied it. They knew someone was watching. They knew someone would come. The United Earth Defense Force had exactly 47 warships, 47 ships made of steel and titanium, powered by nuclear reactors and armed with missiles. Compared to the Armada, they looked like children's toys. General knew this. Every human who looked at those sensor readings knew this, but they also knew something that did not. Admiral watched the human fleet launch from Earth's orbital stations. His officers pointed and made jokes. The primitive ships were actually coming to fight. They were not running. They were not hiding. They were flying directly toward the Armada with their pathetic weapons armed and ready. Found this amusing. He ordered his fleet to maintain course and prepare for a quick battle. The human ships were ugly things, boxy and angular, covered in thick armor plates and bristling with missile tubes. They had no elegance, no beauty. They looked like machines built by creatures who expected to get hit and wanted to survive the impact. The ships were smooth and curved, designed by a species that had never needed to worry about taking damage. Captain James commanded the lead human vessel, the UES Defiance. He was 53 years old, a veteran of 3 wars on Earth, and he had volunteered for this mission knowing he would probably die. Every member of his crew had volunteered. Every human in the fleet had raised their hand when asked who would face the aliens first. The two fleets met in the space between Mars and Jupiter. Admiral ordered his ships to fire a warning volley just to see how the primitives would react. 200 plasma bolts streaked across the void, enough energy in each one to vaporize a city. They expected the humans to scatter in panic. The humans did not scatter. They did not panic. They flew directly into the plasma fire with their engines burning at maximum power. 7 ships were destroyed instantly. Another 12 took heavy damage, but the remaining 28 kept coming and they were firing back. Missiles. The humans were firing missiles. Metal tubes filled with explosive chemicals, guided by simple computers powered by small rockets. Admiral watched them approach on his sensors and almost felt embarrassed for the primitives. His ships did not even bother raising shields. Why would they? These were just missiles. The first missile hit a cruiser and punched straight through its hull. The explosion that followed cracked the ship in half. The second missile did the same. The third. The fourth. Within 60 seconds, 9 warships were destroyed or crippled. Admiral stared at his screens in disbelief. This was impossible. Missiles were primitive weapons. They could not penetrate armor. They could not cause this kind of damage. Something was wrong with his sensors. Something had to be wrong. But nothing was wrong. The humans had simply done something they never expected. They had built their weapons to be brutal. Each missile carried a warhead made from the heaviest elements on Earth, moving at speeds that they had never considered possible. The humans did not try to match alien technology. They took their primitive technology and pushed it beyond all reasonable limits. General watched the battle from Earth and allowed herself a small smile. The missiles were working. The kinetic impact rounds were working. Every weapon that the alien probe had dismissed as useless was now tearing holes in alien warships. They had never faced an enemy who built weapons designed purely for destruction. Admiral finally gave the order to raise shields and return fire with full force. His remaining ships lit up the void with plasma weapons, targeting every human vessel they could track. The UES Defiance took 3 direct hits and kept flying. Its armor was glowing red. Its hull was breached in 7 places, but it kept flying and firing. Captain had lost half his crew in the last 10 minutes. The ship around him was dying, but he could see on his screens that they were dying too. Their beautiful silver ships were burning. Their elegant technology was failing against human stubbornness and human rage. They had made a critical error. They had looked at human technology and seen weakness. They had not considered that humans had been killing each other for thousands of years. They had not understood that human weapons were designed by a species that knew war in its bones. Every missile, every gun, every piece of armor on those primitive ships had been created by creatures who understood violence in ways they never had. The battle lasted 4 hours. By the end, the Armada had been reduced to 63 ships, and 40 of those were too damaged to fight. Admiral was dead, his flagship destroyed by a nuclear warhead that had been strapped to the front of a human shuttle and flown directly into his bridge. The pilot had smiled as he died. They did not understand that smile. The human fleet had been reduced to 11 ships. 11 battered, burning, barely functional ships crewed by exhausted and wounded humans who refused to stop fighting. When the remaining vessels attempted to retreat, the humans chased them. They chased them past Jupiter, past Saturn, past the edge of the solar system. They did not stop until every alien ship was either destroyed or fleeing into deep space. General addressed the planet that night. Her voice was calm and steady, but those who knew her could see the tears in her eyes. Humanity had lost thousands of brave souls. 36 ships had been destroyed. Families would mourn for years, but humanity had survived. Humanity had won. The High Command received the news 3 weeks later. They did not laugh this time. They watched the recordings from the surviving ships and saw their greatest warships being torn apart by primitive weapons. They saw humans flying damaged ships directly into vessels rather than retreat. They saw a species that would rather die than surrender. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire felt something they had forgotten existed: fear. They had underestimated the humans. They had looked at primitive technology and seen an easy conquest. They had not understood that technology alone does not win wars. Will wins wars. Determination wins wars. The willingness to sacrifice everything wins wars. The humans rebuilt their fleet in the following years. They studied the captured technology and began to improve their own ships. But they never forgot the lesson of that first battle. They never tried to match alien elegance or alien beauty. They built their ships the same way they always had, ugly and brutal, and designed to take damage and keep fighting. When they returned 5 years later with a larger armada, the humans were ready. When a third species tried to invade 10 years after that, the humans destroyed them in days. Word spread across the galaxy about the primitive species from the small blue planet. The species that built ugly ships and terrible weapons. The species that never surrendered. The species that would chase you across the stars if you threatened their home. Captain did not survive the first battle. Neither did most of the brave men and women who flew those 47 ships against impossible odds, but their names were carved into monuments on every human world. Their story was taught to every human child. They had proven something that the galaxy needed to learn. Humanity was not advanced. Humanity was not elegant. Humanity was not sophisticated. But humanity was stubborn, violent, creative, and absolutely unwilling to die quietly. They had the best technology in 17 star systems. They had ships that could destroy planets and shields that could stop any weapon. They had everything except the one thing that mattered most. They did not have the human spirit. And that spirit, burning in the hearts of ordinary men and women flying primitive ships into impossible battles, had defeated the greatest armada the galaxy had ever seen. The aliens had underestimated humanity. They would never make that mistake again. The stars belonged to those who were willing to fight for them. And no one in the galaxy was more willing to fight than the strange, stubborn, magnificent creatures from the small blue planet called Earth.